I believe it's clear that if he gets his way, Donald Trump's incoming MAGA agenda is going to destroy the Republican Party from within. Let's address a growing problem in the Republican Party. We all know, big party. Republicans just came off a November win, big one, secured the White House, secured the House, secured the Senate. And you might be thinking, David, hold on a second. How can the MAGA agenda be doomed if it just got a political win everywhere? Now, here's the thing. That short-term victory does not change the underlying structural problems that the Republican Party has been facing and continues to face. And in fact, it might accelerate them. I'll explain how. 2024's wins for Republicans are the culmination of tapping into a particular slice of the electorate, the angry, motivated, hungry for a strong man wing of the electorate. They weren't buying what Kamala Harris was selling. We've got to acknowledge that. They did not see the economy as strong, or at least not strong enough to say, let's give Biden Harris another 4 years by electing Kamala Harris president. They just didn't see it. So that led to Republicans winning everything. But winning one election in this way, for these reasons, does nothing to solve the Republican Party's long-term demographic and ideological challenges, because the demographic shifts continue to happen. The intense culture war battles aren't landing well with moderate suburban voters. They won because a slightly higher portion of Democratic voters and Hispanic voters, et cetera, said, this time I'm voting Trump. Democrats had a weak candidate. The economy was not good enough to win over voters, although I believe the indicators suggested it was pretty damn good. Doesn't matter. It wasn't good enough to convince people. That doesn't mean that the MAGA worldview, including strongman authoritarian politics and increased autocracy, kleptocracy, and oligarchy, it doesn't mean that those ideas have any enduring appeal beyond the core. Now, as the 2025 agenda starts to roll out, we're not just talking about mainstream conservative policies like tax cuts and deregulation. That's what we've come to expect from Republicans for a long time. Trump will probably do a little bit of that, but that's not really what makes up the MAGA vision. The MAGA vision for the future is fundamentally more authoritarian, less grounded in traditional and conservative values, more about nepotism, cronyism, kleptocracy, and oligarchy. The forthcoming loyalty tests in federal agencies, the cultural purges against officials deemed unpatriotic or disloyal, the policy shifts that aren't about small government the way Republicans used to be, and just more about consolidating power. This might look like it makes the party stronger, but it is going to fracture the party internally. Remember that the Republican Party is still, for now, made up of these few different factions. You've got like the old school Chamber of Commerce Republicans, we might call them the pro-business Republicans. You've got the national security hawks, the foreign policy, religious conservatives, and now we've got these MAGA people. There is some overlap there. The 2024 victory could have temporarily masked some of these divisions thanks to people who rejected Kamala and voted Trump or stayed home. But as the party moves forward with this authoritarian agenda, it is going to alienate a lot of these factions who were already sort of uneasy, but really didn't want to vote for Kamala Harris. The traditional conservatives who value rule of law and America's international standing as a respected country, they're going to get very uncomfortable when they see this turn towards punishing institutions and allies for not being loyal enough. The big business crowd is going to get nervous about the trade wars and the protectionist policies because they know it's not going to be good for their businesses. Giving Elon Musk goodies, which we'll talk about later, and nobody else is not exactly going to be liked by the pro-business crowd. And then even the religious conservatives may start to say, I don't know about this, when the cultural battles aren't really about family values and they're just about payback at the end of the day. So you're going to have these cracks that widen. The more Trump gets to do what he's threatening to do, the more these cracks are going to widen. And two things are going to happen. Number one, the Republican Party risks losing some of the more moderate policy-driven people. I'm not saying in 2028 they'll come out and vote AOC, Gavin Newsom, Pete Buttigieg, whoever. I'm not saying that. But indeed, they might have said, well, in 2024, I'll take a chance on Trump because I don't really like the alternatives. The momentary conditions are not pushing me to vote for Harris. But these are not likely long-term MAGA voters, and they are likely to defect next time, or more likely just stay home. Number two, the party itself will become less coherent. Instead of a coalition that can adapt to new political realities, it will become a party defined by a rigid ideology, increasingly intolerant of dissent. This has been one of their strengths. While we do have a bunch of these purity tests on the left, the Republican Party, to a degree, has succeeded recently by just allowing in whoever the hell wants to come in, even if they don't like them, right? Hey, gay conservatives, we're not thrilled, but they're here as long as they're not voting for Democrats. So that's going to happen. And then to make matters worse, the dramatic policies that MAGA is promising, right? The total gutting of federal agencies, for example, in order to ensure loyalty and purity, rolling back decades of social progress, that stuff is not likely to age well. And the reason I say that is that historically, these moves breed public backlash, and public backlash hurts whoever is in power. Now, the immediate aftermath feels like a big win. The party is clearly emboldened to go all in. They think they have a mandate, even though Trump didn't even get 50% of the vote. But the midterm elections that follow, 2026, local elections in suburbs that are increasingly diverse, this is going to 180 quickly, I believe, as voters start to see the consequences of what Trump has been offering, and it's going to go a different direction. The 2024 triumph, in a sense, sets Trump up for a 2025 agenda that, instead of stabilizing the Republican Party into something that can endure long term, will just put it on a collision course with itself. When you try to maintain power through harsh and unpopular authoritarian measures, it becomes difficult to appeal to a broad enough electorate to sustain further wins. So they won this election cycle. It wasn't because of fraud. They just won. We have to acknowledge that. But then you have to go and say, what happens when you go beyond one election cycle? Can you remain a viable big tent political entity for years to come if your governance is mostly authoritarianism and cronyism? Yes, the Republican Party has claimed a major victory, but they're pushing an agenda with purity tests, punishment of dissent, and remaking the country into an authoritarian mold that I don't think the majority of the voters actually want. It will fracture the party from within, and it will make it really difficult to compete nationally. The question is, will we be engaged and active enough that we can take what we're calling the 2025 agenda, right? Trump's first year plus up until the midterms. Can we take the 2025 agenda and ensure that it leaves in its wake destruction, the likes of which the Republican Party can't crawl out of for a long time? Or do they do okay in 26 and maybe get J.D. Vance in the White House in 2028? It is truly an inflection point. It could be the collapse of the party, but only if we're there to ensure that it is. Well, I wrote a book after a long journey and a ton of work. I am really thrilled with how it turned out, and I hope you'll read it. The book is called The Echo Machine, and in a nutshell, it looks at how American politics got so broken, who has already figured out solutions, and how we can try to fix it and stop the terror of Trump for the next 4 years. With Trump winning this election, The Echo Machine couldn't be more relevant, not only a warning about how we got here, but also about what might be coming and how to prevent the worst outcomes. We've got to stay engaged. We need a plan, and that's what the book is about. There's a belief out there that unless you have corporate media behind you, you can't have a successful political book launch, that it's not possible. I think we can prove that wrong. Order The Echo Machine today at davidpakman.com/echo on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Audible, Kindle, anywhere that books, ebooks, and audiobooks are sold. You can also call any local bookstore and say, please order me The Echo Machine by David Pakman. Wherever you get the book, you'll get the free pre-order perks, including the signed book plate head to davidpakman.com/free book stuff after ordering.